Hello class. Okay, this is a short video on the unemployment rate. So this video is about how to calculate the unemployment rate, how to interpret it, and what pitfalls there are in the data. Okay, so let's get started. See if I can get my image off of here. Okay, so what is the unemployment rate? The unemployment rate is defined to be the number unemployed divided by the labor force. But this term labor force is a stumbling block for a lot of students. The labor force is actually the number employed, which is obvious, plus the number unemployed. Must remember that the labor force is not only the people who are working, it's also the people who would like to be working. So the unemployment rate technically is the ratio of the number of people who aren't working but would like to work, the number unemployed, divided by both the number unemployed and the number employed. Now the next thing you should remember is how we get to these numbers. In other words, what defines a person as unemployed and what defines a person as employed. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics, where this data is collected, do it with a random survey. The survey looks like this. There are two basic questions. The first question says, are you working? And if you are working, you answer yes, then you are employed. So you go in the box employed if you are working. But if you answer no, there's a follow-up question. And that question is, have you searched for work? And I think it's, have you searched for work in the last 10 days? It might be in the last 2 weeks, or it might even be as much as the last month, but I think it's less than that. I'm not going to ask you what the actual time is, but the question is basically, have you searched for work, yes or no? If you answer no, that you haven't searched for work, then you're not counted anywhere. So think about full-time students. They're able-bodied adults and they could technically be working, but they're not because they're full-time students. Or young mothers with children at home. They're working plenty hard at home, but technically, by the way these things are calculated, they're not working, and so forth. Retired people maybe aren't working. So if you're not searching for work, you're not counted. If you answer yes, that you have searched for work, then you are unemployed. So that's how they get the numbers, from this very, very simple survey. Now you would think that's really straightforward, but it generates a couple of problems, and I've made a list of them here. So go back to the definition of what the unemployment rate is, and here are some things that escape that formula. First, there's the problem of the discouraged worker. So imagine that you got laid off, and you get laid off on a Friday, and you spent all weekend polishing your resume and going out shopping for a new power suit and a new attaché case, and you go out Monday morning at 9 o'clock pounding the pavement to try to find a new job. And so you're handing out your resumes from one business to another all day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so forth, with no responses. After a week, or maybe 2 weeks, or maybe 5 weeks, I don't know how long it would take, but sooner or later, if you don't get a response, you become discouraged. And when that happens, maybe you only go out, once or twice a week. Maybe finally you just go out on occasion, and then, to make it really disgusting, you just lay at home all day in your pajamas, eating potato chips and playing with your cats. So once that happens, you would not be employed, and you're not unemployed because you've now so discouraged that you don't look anymore. So you and I would probably agree that those discouraged workers are technically unemployed. But the way we calculate the index, they are lost. They are not counted anywhere. The second problem with the index is the idea of part-time workers. So imagine somebody who would like to be working full-time, but they can only find part-time work. And they get the survey and it says, are you working? They would answer yes, and that would make them employed. It would make the unemployment rate lower than what you and I think it probably should be. Because this person, this part-time worker who is working, would really like some kind of better job, and so the index counts them as working and doesn't judge whether the work is really adequate or not. The third problem is the underemployed workers. So underemployed is a technical term in economics, and it refers to people who are doing some job because they just need to find work, but it's not the job that they're trained to do. Might be surprising for you to know, but this is kind of common in highly technical aerospace fields. So imagine that you have a graduate degree in aerospace engineering, and you're working for some company making some interstellar probe, and then the probe launches and now you don't have a job anymore, and you are basically out of work until the next big government grant comes. Sounds weird, but I've heard many stories where this is common. So you could have highly skilled, very technical people who can't find work for a while, and so they'll take other kinds of work in the meantime to shore up things. So maybe they're working as a manager in a small retail store or something while they wait for the next big National Science Foundation grant to come. So they would be counted as employed, but you and I would agree that they are underemployed workers. So all of those make the unemployment rate, the reported unemployment rate, seem a little better than it should be. But now I want to show you one that might make it seem worse than it should be. And that's this thing called government-induced unemployment. I don't mean to suggest that the government is doing this on purpose. They're not. But when the government makes a program to make life better for those people who are out of work, it causes those people to have a little more freedom to search a little longer for maybe a better job. So for example, I think, unemployment compensation is a federal program that's designed to take a little bit of the sting out of being laid off. So you get laid off, you can draw unemployment compensation while you search for a new job. But think about it this way. If there was no unemployment compensation program, people would be much more desperate and they would take jobs much quicker. For example, if you got laid off in Charleston and you had children in school here in Charleston and there was no unemployment compensation, and you managed to get laid off and you found a job in Atlanta, you would move to Atlanta because you needed to support your family. But if you could draw unemployment compensation for a year and you found a job in Atlanta, you might say, well, maybe I'll take it, but maybe I'll keep searching. Maybe something will come up here in Charleston or maybe Somerville or Goose Creek. So, government-induced unemployment is just this secondary effect of government programs that are essentially designed to make being unemployed not as terrible as it would be otherwise. Okay, so that's the kind of mechanics of how we calculate the unemployment rate, and that's sort of the things that you have to be nervous about when you try to interpret the numbers. Now let's do a little math. So imagine I gave you a problem like this, that the number employed was 10,000 and the number unemployed was 500, and I ask you to find the labor force. Remember now, the labor force is equal to the number unemployed plus the number employed. So it would just be 10,000 plus 500. The labor force would be 10,500. That's kind of easy. Then suppose I ask you to find the unemployment rate. Remember, the unemployment rate is the number unemployed, which is 500, divided by the labor force, which is 10,500. Many students will mess up right here, and they will just put the number employed in here, and they'll get it wrong. So in this particular problem, the unemployment rate is about 4.76%, or in decimal 0.047619. So this is a pretty easy problem, but let me show you how I can make it a little harder. Suppose I gave you the unemployment rate was 4%, and I told you that the number of people unemployed was 500, I might ask you to find the labor force. And the way you would do it is like this. The unemployment rate is equal to the number unemployed divided by the labor force. This is just from the definition. And so from this equation, you could solve for the labor force by multiplying both sides by the labor force, dividing both sides by 0.04, and you would get that the labor force is 12,500. Then I might ask you, well, find the number employed. How many people were employed if the unemployment rate was 4% and the number unemployed was 500? The way you would do it is, you would say, well, the labor force is just the number unemployed plus the number employed. The labor force we already calculated to be 12,500. The number unemployed was 500, so the number employed must have been 12,000. Okay, so that's how you calculate these things, but I think we should take a second and go out on the internet and find where this data is. All of you should do this. So if you go to bls.gov, which I thought I had loaded, but maybe I don't. Yeah, give me a second. Go out to bls.gov, and this is the government agency that keeps track of all this data. I usually click on the data tools here, and then I try to find unemployment. Here's unemployment. Okay, so now I'm looking for labor force statistics, including the national unemployment rate. I'm going to pick this. These are the different ways it can come. So you can get a text file or tables. I usually use this thing right here, but all of them would work. I think you need some little app to make this thing load, but it'll come up. So here is the let me get this over where you can see it. So here's all the ways the unemployment rate is broken down. So I'm going to get the unemployment rate for both sexes, all races, all origins, 16 years of age and older, all educational levels, all marriage status, and now in this box I need to pick something. These are the different kinds of data sets you can get. I want to get the unemployment rate, which is down in here somewhere. There it is, unemployment rate. And I usually don't get it seasonally adjusted. I'm just going to get it not seasonally adjusted. And it won't let me pick annual. I don't know why. So I'm going to get it quarterly. Quarterly. And now I think I can get my data. So here it is. Now notice it defaults to just the last 10 years, but check this out. I can drop this thing down and I can get the unemployment rate for as far back as 1948. And I think I can also get the annual averages. I click this little box, it'll give me the annual averages. Let's see what we have now. It didn't give me the annual averages. Can you see what I'm looking at? I didn't mean to do that. It didn't give me the national annual averages, although I thought it would, but it gave me the quarters. And then I can get this thing into Excel. It's downloading. Here it is. So can you see this? Let me make it a little smaller, maybe you can see it. This is the unemployment rate by quarter from 1948 to 2019. Right now the unemployment rate's about 3.5%. Historically that's a really low number. I think to find a number like that you'd have to go back before 2008. Oh yeah, you have to go way back. That's a really, really low number. Trying to find here, it's in 1969 it was 3.6%. Hey, 3.4, 3. So 1969 evidently was a good year. Richard Nixon was president then. I remember that. And then anyway, so there they are. You want to see how bad the recession was in 2008, you can see it in the unemployment rates. Look at this. 5.3, 6, 6.6, 8.8, 10.4. So it was really rough and it took a long time for it to fall. Anyway, so that's where you find the unemployment data. And now I hope with this short video you'll understand how to get the unemployment rate and how to carefully interpret it. And there I am. Where did I go? There I am. So I hope you find this video helpful, and if you have any trouble feel free to call me. Okay, good luck.